Sorry.
main shipyard job.
My bad.
Told me about that one already.
Did I?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm here now. I know you are. Okay, GTV, we are ready to start. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our regularly scheduled Goffstown Planning Board meeting, September 23rd, 2021. As always, before we begin anything, we start with introductions, and I'll start with Dave at that end of the table.
Dave Pierce, I'm an alternate member to the board.
Jim Raymond.
Karen Hughes.
Barbara Griffin.
Tim Redmond.
Mark Lemay, Select Board Rep, filling in for Collis Adams.
Philip Devanza.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
Okay. And since we have one, at least one, we have one full member missing
Yeah.
tonight, so David will be voting on applications as our alternate member.
Yep.
Okay, we have a couple of quick items before we get started. We'll start with a couple of the action items. We have minutes that have been sent to everyone from the September 9th, 2021 meeting. Do you have any?
We approve them.
Been a motion by Jim Raymond to
Second.
approve them as presented, seconded by Phil. Any discussion on the motion? Does anybody have any changes or corrections to the minutes?
Not material.
Seeing none, we'll have a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstaining.
Abstaining.
2 abstentions. Minutes pass. We have an email from Mike Dahlberg from TF Moran stating they are withdrawing the Elm Street subdivision, map 38, lot 117. Joanne, you have action needed. What is the action we need to do with that?
I think the board just needs to accept the withdrawal so that we have it for the record.
And what is the procedure for accepting?
I move that we accept the withdrawal, that it's off. He like pointed out to show it's gone, but we didn't take the action the applicant did. So
Okay, there's a
we accept
motion
the
by
applicant.
Second.
Jim Raymond, seconded by Phil again, to accept the withdrawing of the Elm Street subdivision, map 38, lot 17. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. We have a second email from Eric Mitchell requesting to continue the Terrell Hill Road application, map 9, lots 15, 16, 17, 18, to the October 28th meeting. Joanne, do you have any information on that for us?
Yes, if you remember from the last meeting, they were going to meet with the fire department. So Rob Steris could not be with us tonight because he's out of town, but the fire department has not yet gotten back to him with a date for the meeting, so that was the main reason. They'd also like to waive the 65-day clock. So they would be coming before you on October 28th.
Is that before or after the 65-day clock expired?
You accepted it, if you give me a second, I can look it up here.
Well, I mean, I can look it up.
We accepted it at the last meeting.
I think it was the last
The last meeting.
So to answer your question, that would be no. Yeah, it was accepted on the
The 9th. Minute,
The-
the last
yes.
minute meeting.
so that would only go to the 28th, so that would not be the 65.
It's not necessary,
We've asked them to do that just to be on the safe
Okay.
side.
in
But
case
they've
they ask for a
waived it, but
second
we don't need to
continuance.
deal with it right
Yeah.
now.
In case they ask for an additional continuance
All right.
possibly. Okay. So, action needed, so if somebody, we need a motion on that, I guess.
I'll move that, I'd like the minutes to show that they waived the 65-day clock, and on that basis move to continue this to whatever date.
I'll second it.
October 28th.
Motion by Jim, second by Karen. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that this is being held up because at this point of the fire department, from what I can tell, and I am concerned that the fire department is not going to give this applicant definitive direction, which is what I think he wants in regards to the cistern issue. And as a board, I think we're going to need to discuss, if this isn't resolved by the next meeting, as to whether or not we're going to adopt an official policy on this. Because I think if the fire department doesn't like what we say, because it's a recommendation, right, not a requirement, they just won't sign off on the permits. And every department has to sign off on permits for it to issue. So there's an ability to sort of go around what we might say by not signing on the permit. And I think it needs to be resolved, because fire department comments are woefully lacking usually in connection with these developments, and it really needs to stop. It's not fair to applicants.
I did have a conversation with Lieutenant Connor the next day, and he understands that this is just a lot line adjustment, and that a cistern could not be requested at this particular time. However, after the lot line adjustment is approved, they then move on to the building process, and you no longer see the plan. So if a cistern were to be located, you would not have privy to the location, the size, the area to pull off, as well as the drainage review that Sarah normally does. I think in this particular situation, because there are 3 existing lots, it needs to just be waived, because the lots can be built as they are without the lot line adjustment.
I
So-
suggest we talked about this in 20.
That's why I just wanted that comment before we voted on the minutes. I don't think it needs to be in there, but this is not a done issue. It needs to be noted and kept in mind. Thank you.
Okay,
Can we take a
so the
vote?
motion,
No, we didn't vote yet.
No, we didn't.
we have not voted yet. I wanted discussion on the motion. Are we having discussion on the motion?
We're done.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? All right, call for a vote to accept the request to be continued to October 28th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions, motion passes. All right, Joanne,
So the next order of business would be the CIP presentation.
okay.
Can you guys hear me with this? Do I speak louder? Okay.
So, just very quickly, Jim Raymond has been our CIP chair for the last few years. We thank him for his time putting into it. It's a lot of time for the process. I know I did it myself for many years. So, at this point, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Jim Raymond.
Thank you. I know this is the main show of the evening and why you came. And we promised not to.
You didn't wear your tie.
Oh, I know, I wasn't hot yet. We promise not to disappoint you. You've all seen this movie before with similar conclusions, so I'm not going to go through the entire description, but we do have thousands of voters watching on television, so we'll do a little bit. I also have to apologize. I didn't have a chance to finish the report that goes in the town meeting. I'll blame it on Joanne for not bugging me every day, but she doesn't have to. But the CIP, for the benefit of the many members of the public, the CIP, the Community Capital Improvements Program Committee, is an advisory committee to the planning board to recommend a capital improvement program for the town and the school district, and it's authorized by statute, RSA 674-537. Every year we go through the requests made by the department chairs for items to be placed on a matrix, which you have in front of you, that schedule the capital improvements over 5 years, 1, 2, 3, 4, I guess 5 years, 6 years, 5 years, and ranks them by priority and puts in a very rough estimate of cost. I emphasize very rough because it's not a final project. There's no specifications. It's the best estimate that can be brought up with at this time, which is all we request. Joanne, I'm going to ask you quickly. Well, hold on to that. Let me introduce first the members. We had a sterling committee this year. A few repeats, and several new people. I'll just go down, and most of them are sitting eagerly in the audience. Just raise your hands when I call your name. Ellen Vermarkowitz, representing the school board. Jared Talbot is a school board alternative. He's not here tonight, but he filled in for Ellen. Kimberly Peace, a board member who's absent tonight. I think she was afraid of what she had to present, so she chose to be absent. Richard Manzo from the Budget Committee. Jim Craig from the Select Board. Gail Lebrecq, again on the Planning Board, but she's absent.
Mine's off.
Phillips right there.
Brad Parkhurst, who's community at large, and Daniel O'Connell, who is sort of a new volunteer for the town, and he thought this was a good way to be introduced to the scope of the town. I hope we don't let him go. So write down his name. Helping us, the staff, are Danielle Bassera, the Assistant Town Administrator and Finance Director, who's not here tonight, but she was very important, and Joanne, of course, the Planning and Economic Development Director. We had presentations from the Police Chief, Eric Serino, Fire Chief, Chief Brian Allard, DPW, Adam Jacobs, Parks and Rec, Rick, how do you pronounce it? Wilhelmi, yeah, you guys pronounce it, I put the accent in the wrong syllable. The sewer by Dan Taylor and Corey White. In the school, Scott Gross, Stephen Bourget, and Randy Loring. And for the library, Amy Hunterman. Who did I leave out? I will hear from them. I think that's everybody. We met on basically alternate Thursdays, and the planning board was not meeting except for the July 4th weekend. I gave them that off. So we met on June 3rd, June 17th, July 15th, July 29th, and August 15th. We had several meetings. So Joanne, why don't you quickly tell us what projects go on the matrix?
Okay. So we have a CIP handbook that was adopted by the planning board and a few years ago, and they actually define the CIP improvement projects. So they have to be over or at least $25,000 and have an expected life of at least 5 years. And then they also need to fall into one of these categories: the acquisition or lease of land or interest in land for public purpose. It could also be for the purchase, lease, construction, rehabilitation, or replacement of a building or facility, public infrastructure such as highways, sewer, water lines, or similar projects, and equipment purchase, lease, replacement, or refurbishing supporting any of the above categories. In addition, we also include vehicles that don't need to meet the $25,000 requirement, but need to be at least $10,000 in cost. And these are specifically wheeled vehicles or motorized vehicles, and they need to have a lifespan of at least 3 years. And projects to come into immediate compliance if there was some emergency would also go through the CIP if there was some sort of federal or state emergency. And those are the categories that the department heads include on their CIP. The remainder of any wants or needs go into the budget request.
So one thing, we don't do operational costs. That's
Correct.
not our purview.
That's in the budget.
For example, a capital cost will have an operational cost component, but we don't consider that. Then we rank them by priority. Do you want me to read this paragraph, or you're on a roll? Why don't you keep going?
Okay, there are 6 priorities for CIP. The first one is urgent, cannot be delayed, needs immediate attention. Priority 2 is necessary, needed within 3 years to maintain the basic level of quality of the community. Number 3 is desirable, which is needed within 4 to 6 years. Number 4 is deferrable, which can be placed on hold after 6 years. Number 5 is premature, which needs more research. And number 6 is inconsistent, which is contrary to land use planning. The department heads, when they first submit their paperwork to the select board, they prioritize as they feel what is necessary for each request. And then, once it goes to the CIP committee, they can make adjustments to those priorities based on the presentations that are made by the department heads.
Okay, thank you. So what we get is a proposed matrix initially, and then we horse with it and come out with the final one when we're after getting the reports and debating among ourselves. So big picture goals, then we identify capital needs, we prioritize them, we put an estimate of costs, we rank them by need, the priority, and we also look at how to time them to try to even out the tax burden, so you don't get these peaks and valleys over the years that used to happen when, spending on some large project gets put into 1 year and you get a big bump in your taxes. So we try to move them around to even out the taxes. What we don't do, and this is as important, we don't require, as I mentioned before, exact costs, because we're projecting way into the future without specifications. Many of these projects don't have final studies or designs. We don't tell the departments how to do their jobs. It's up to them. We don't tell the governing boards, the select board or the school board, how to finance. That's not our job. We're an advisory committee that makes a recommendation, and we try to stay in our lane, and I think that's important. And we don't make the final decisions. Our recommendation goes to this board for modification or approval. It then goes to the governing boards and the budget committee, so when they want to formulate the warrant and the budget, and ultimately it goes to the infinite wisdom of the voters to adopt or not. So it's up to them. We're not adopting anything. We're just recommending how the capital needs can be met. And as we've talked on the board, and various people have pointed out, if the voters in their infinite wisdom decide they don't want fire trucks or ambulances or police, that's their decision. It's not ours. We just recommend. Big picture lessons we've drawn from prior years, and you've heard this. One, and I think we're all in agreement on the committee, deferred maintenance, deferred replacement costs more in the long run in dollars and lost efficiency. And we have certain schedules we're trying to stay on. You can appreciate that. You can save money not replacing the roof on your house, but if you're sealing your roof rots, you haven't saved money. Second, we told the departments if they see a need, they should not be shy about asking for it. They've been bruised in the past by asking and getting beaten down. We want to know what they want. We can weigh it, but tell us. And sometimes you'll see in their priorities, they rank things lower because they're afraid of getting, bidden or something. No, if you think this is a priority, tell us. We can assess it. Planning board can assess it. The boards can assess it, but we need to hear from them. They're not the final decision. We're not, but we need to know what they want. We also ask them to identify longer-term goals that may not necessarily be on the matrix, but we know they're coming down the pike. Example could be a new fire station someday. We're not putting it on the matrix, but we know there's a need out there. So we want to know about it, and then so we can work it. And I think one of the things that the committee sees is how there's a lot of pieces to the town puzzle. They fit together mostly, and you can't just take out little pieces here and there. You have to see the big picture, and that's one of the things I hope everybody agrees being on this committee lets us do. Okay. What we're going to do is we've divided up among the volunteers. Richard was absent that day, so I didn't dump anything on him, but that's not because I'd not be delighted if he made a presentation. I just didn't think it was too fair. That would be too unfair to give him something. But everybody else had assignments to present. I'm going to let them do the presentations. I'm going to have to pinch hit for Gail. Brad is pinch hitting for Kimberly, but otherwise we'll have the people make what I asked for, a very brief summary of their topic. So,
Brief is the big word in the
absolutely
sentence.
brief, yeah. And I'm going to start with Ellen with the school. That's a biggie, and then that'll be the most exciting part, and then we'll go downhill from there.
So, just so people can follow along, Jim, since you're the master, you're going to tell us where we're going to be in the matrix.
Okay, if you look at your matrix.
No, I mean when each presenter comes
Yeah,
up.
I do. But just take a minute. There's a few categories just to introduce you to it. Town vehicles are up front by department. And then you get into the non-vehicle capital projects by department. So you have to kind of jump back and forth between vehicles, which would be police, DPW mostly, and then the others. And the school is at the end, starting on page 6. Okay, so we're actually gonna go backwards.
Okay.
Ellen, you're on.
So please, just everyone, as you come up to speak, just please state your name for the record so that it's been duly recorded. Thank you.
I'm Ellen Pomakowitz.
Alan, you want to lift that microphone that's right in front of you up a little bit? It's pointed. Yeah, thanks.
I'm Ellen Vermakowitz, and I am the school board's rep on CIP this year. I'm not going to go down the list here, because my fearless leader said keep it brief. Okay, I'm not going to do that. The school district has put together a proposal which maintains our buildings and our facilities, grounds, with the items that are in a routine schedule, such as our windows, the roof repairs, replacement, needing to keep up with technology. At Mountain View, you will see a road, the entrance and egress expansion, widening them, as well as a bus route turnaround, like a cul-de-sac in the back of the school, to help alleviate the traffic situation that's up there. At all our schools, we have air handling that needs to be addressed, as well as security needs, trying to keep our schools safe. The theater at the high school, we have on here an expansion and infrastructure repair. The high school fields in the back, on here is a project for turf and lights. We also have the generator that we still want to bring in, hopefully with a grant. And like I said, the security items. Without going into a great deal of detail, I can tell you that the revenues going towards offsetting the cost of the CIP items is our capital reserve fund, impact fees, the E-rates, the ESSER 1, 2, and 3 grants that we've received. Together, the total of those revenue sources, not including taxation, is about half, if not a little more than half, of the total cost of CIP that we have in here. Those ESSER grants have been really important, and we're putting them toward this type of thing as allowed in the grant process, what they allow us to do with them, okay?
Just to be clear, are those the grants that have come through the federal government
Yeah.
recently?
Yeah.
Okay, you didn't define what those,
The ESSER 1, 2, and 3, that's
you
the,
just used the acronym and some of
I'm
the.
sorry, from the pandemic.
Pandemic, thank you.
Types of things. There are things that each of them lists that you're allowed to do with them, and of course, we're following those requirements. And that's quite a bit of revenue. You put that list together, and it's quite a bit. And like I said, it's about half of the total cost of CIP for the school district over the next number of years. And that's it.
Tim, is that quick enough?
That was fabulous.
Okay.
I have,
Okay, and we might have, the board, all the planning board members all have an opportunity to speak at every one of these. So Barbara, you would like to be recognized?
thank you. Thank you for coming tonight, Ellen. Nice to see you. And I have a question on sort of the total amount. And I do see that there are notes on the right about moving stuff around, which I thought were done generally pretty well this year. So I just wanted to comment that. But if I go to page 9 of 9, because I did see
That's
the
got the
grants
totals
here.
on the bottom?
Yep.
Okay.
So just so I understand, is it correct that the total school projects, am I reading this right? It's 1.7?
I'm trying to find the line you're looking at.
Line 284.
284, subtotal school projects. There we go.
That's the gross.
That's the
proposed
gross,
revenue.
not
That's
the
the
net.
gross. So I just, for the record, I want to make clear what you were talking about. The grant totals that you're talking about, along with reserves, which are really sort of small, is 1.4, right?
Where you're looking,
Yeah. And line
Line 289.
89.
So your
Total
projects
school
of,
project revenues, okay.
Because you were saying half, Ellen, and I don't think you were giving the school enough credit for the grants. That looks to me like the total is 1.7, and after grants and use of this capital reserve fund, it's less than $500,000, 352,000. Am I reading this report right?
The school project cost after revenues is $352,000.
So I just, for the record, I want to make it clear, it is way more than half of the projects that your grants are paying for.
And
Being
capital reserve fund.
Yeah, well, the capital reserve fund is, 170 is sort of negligible next to 1.2 million, but it's a huge amount.
It's a huge amount.
Okay.
The ESSER grants that we've gotten this past year is huge.
Huge.
And much of it, if not all of it, can go toward these kinds of things, along with the remediation programs and to catch kids up and all, that kind of thing. It's a substantial amount when you put it all together, so I think our administration has done a very good job, Scott Gross and Brian, of how can we use this, what's the best place to put it to help with the expense of these needed items.
Let me interject. I said we move things around. We actually move things forward this year because on the earlier drafts, there was a big bump in year 2 or 3, I forget which it was.
I think it was 2.
Yeah, so we asked the departments what of the things can be moved to next year so we don't get that big bump the year. And some things can't be moved because of construction schedules, they tie into other things. But we did try to even it out as much as we can. The other thing, this goes partially to what Barbara is asking about, when you look at funding sources, that revenue includes some other stuff. But don't forget, we can pay for these projects in several ways. Tax expenditures in 1 year, bonding, which means you borrow and pay in arrears, or capital reserve funds. You set aside money in advance, and that's up to the governing bodies to decide. But we try to look at that. We're not telling them how to do it, but when we know it's going to be bonded or something, we can look at the actual cost per year. Again, we're not telling them how to do it, but we like it when they're planning. That's one of the goals of this project, is to create capital reserves or figure out bonding. And, so
Any other board members have any questions or comments for Ellen? Thank you, Ellen, for your time.
Seeing none, Jim, do you want to go next?
Not really, but I will.
That was a rhetorical question at best.
It gets you out of here sooner.
If you're talking to me, I'll go next.
Yeah. I wasn't talking to myself. I'm the other Jim.
My name is Jim Craig. I'm the selectman member for the CIP, and I'm here. My two concerns were administration and the library, and I will be as brief as you let me. The first issue.
All right, you done? Oh, sorry.
Where are we looking?
Joanne, why don't you
This is
tell
on
us-
page 3 of 8. I don't know if I have the same one that you.
We all have the same matrix.
3 of 8, and there's a.
Look, 3 of 9.
3 of 9.
3 of 9.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
I got
not
3 of 8, so I don't know if I did.
Name it then.
It says town capital projects.
What page are you looking at?
The first.
Oh, 3, okay. Oh, okay, right up top. Got it.
Okay, so first up, I guess I don't have the same one as you, but we'll muddle through, or I will, I hope. The first issue that,
Excuse me, page 4 has admin and library. 153 is library,
You're right,
and
you're right.
161 is admin.
Oh,
Please,
Do
please.
you need another copy? I have.
maybe, so if you're talking the same one, which would be helpful.
Yeah, I think I'm mistake.
Page 4.
Oh, thank you. It's got the same projects on it that I looked at. Okay, the first project that we looked at was the Grassmere Town Hall building, which has been converted, I think, into a theater of sorts. And the only thing that's left on it is phase 2 that consists of, in the rear, putting an elevator and making it ADA compliant. And as I understand it, the money has been gathered, except that there's $100,000, what should we call it? $100,000 into the capital reserve fund that the voters agreed to, and this is the last, there have already been two put into the capital reserve fund, and this is the last $100,000 addition to the capital reserve fund for that project. Okay.
So now I'm already confused, because where's the 100,000? It's not on the matrix.
Well, you know, I
It's,
used a
I think
different
it's a line
matrix.
174, is that it?
Yeah.
I think,
I apologize, I used a different matrix.
yeah, look at, yeah, line
Oh, is it
162.
162, is that?
Line 163, yeah, it's,
Oh.
the budget was, but we're looking for $500,000
Right.
more, but then
That's
that'll be
160,
offset by,
163.
right?
Well, but it appears that the offset is 500,000,
Right.
so it's a total offset, subject to approval of $100,000 at
Right.
town meeting?
Right.
Okay.
Okay. The second one concerns the parking lot that you drove in to this afternoon, this evening. And it was last patched in 2015. They assume they're gonna patch it some more. This was a project that was gonna be done in 2022, but it was deferred to 2023 to see if they can get the federal government to pay for it through coronavirus federal grants. This is a $60,000 priority 2 issue.
Okay.
The third, the next three are concerning the IT, the network that basically runs the town. And they're broken down into three numbers. The first one is priority 2, which we're in the amount of $130,000, and it's broken down into the core infrastructure that will be needed to be replaced and updated according to the master plan, so that the whole town doesn't break down, the computers don't break down. Second one is basically the same thing, except it's a $232,000 amount, and it's a priority 2, and that concerns the network portion of the IT system. And the last one is priority 2 also for $260,000, and that's to upgrade the hardware, the actual the servers and those kind of things. So that's broken down into three parts for the IT upgrade for the town.
But Jim, the 260 is out in 2025. It's not part of this year's.
Yeah, I think they're broken down. I think they can be done separately, so they break them up.
So they're looking for the core infrastructure this year and the access infrastructure
Right,
this
the
year.
core is the most important, I think, according to the people.
The third portion has been moved out in the matrix to 2025. There's also a flyover, line 166.
That's the last one. It's a GIS flyover. It's supposed to be done on a 10-year cycle. It was last done in 2012, and it's actually done an airplane flying over the town, recording new developments, new roads, those kind of things which are used by various people throughout the government of the town. And that's a $100,000 expenditure for 2023.
Okay. Any questions for Jim on the admin side? I see library didn't pose anything, so you're not telling us anything about library.
There I am, just one thing. They are in the works to put in, to hopefully build a big expansion to the library. They don't have much in the way of facts and figures going. As a matter of fact, they're coming to the select board, I think on the 4th, to present where they are, and I think they're talking about fundraising and starting a foundation to raise money. So we have the CIP basically earmarked a figure of $5,996,542. Where that number came from, I don't know. But they have got they've got a lot of work to do with that. So it's basically a place marker.
Yep. Sounds good.
They are doing some planning, but don't put in a number, so at least it's there, but don't.
It's called a placeholder, like
Yeah,
you said. That's all it is.
everybody understands, and don't take that as exact.
Any questions on the admin portion of it, the flyover, or the 2 network requests from any board members? Barbara?
I went to look for my old CIP stuff, and I think that in a moment of rashness, I threw out all my old documents that I've had piling up around my house, floor to floor. Does anybody remember how the flyover was paid for 10 years ago?
It was a CIP request.
It was 10 years
It
ago?
wasn't CIP, I
Okay.
remember when they requested it.
All right, thanks. Because I just have to say in general, and it's not specific to what,
I know it
being
was, and
presented.
it was 60,000 back then, if my memory serves me
we are
right.
stretching the definition of CIP, in my opinion, all over the place because the Board of Selectmen are trying to control the budget.
Okay, this committee, in answer, I won't say it's right or wrong, you know, we do the handbook, so
No.
we couldn't bring it back up to, you know, redefine and take some stuff off of our plate. And
I mean, I know why, but.
Just as a side note, the flyover was moved from 2023 to 2022.
Right.
Okay.
Okay,
Good.
anything else? Thank you, Jim, for your time.
Okay. Dan, you want to do fire?
Dan who? Jim?
Dan O'Connell. Dan
O'Connell?
O'Connell, O apostrophe K, C-O-N-N-E-L-L. Dan is the new guy on the block, asked some good questions, because
I don't know. I
he
think
didn't
I'm
have
the
to
oldest one in
pretend.
this room, though.
And he's still comes, so that's amazing.
Yeah, so I said, well, letting him go.
This starts on page 3
We'll start off with
of the
the
vehicles.
vehicles.
Okay.
Page 1, line 31.
So for the record,
Sorry, Dan O'Connell, Community Representative at Large. And this is my first year, I'm a little nervous, so please bear with me. So the fire department is requesting a new engine, and that would be engine 4. It is over 20 years old. The offset for that cost of $775,000 would be capital reserve funds. The next item would be line 45. And that is a new spill trailer, which when it was purchased, it was about 10 years old, so probably time to replace that. That's going to come from the taxpayer fund for about $20K. And the next item would be the replenishment of the capital reserve fund, which is line 46. And the request there is for $250,000. That will do it for the vehicles. The next item would be the capital projects for the fire department. At this time they're requesting on line 111, cardiac monitor and defibrillators. There's no impact there because it's coming out of the EMS fund. And then the last item, which is on line 112, the Mass Road Station. They stressed on the fact that the floors bow when the trucks come in and out. So I feel like that should be addressed sooner than later. So we discussed doing a survey that next year for about $50,000 to see how much the project will cost as well.
so this line 112 is for consulting fees?
Or survey, to inspect the property itself and the building, structural.
You had discussion about this, long discussion, I assume?
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of money to me to give a consultant to tell you that the floors need to be
Well, I
fixed.
mean,
I don't think that's what you just heard. I think you just heard the building.
Yeah, it's a bigger
It's the
project.
whole project.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And again, it's not a quote, we're just putting in a number.
Yep. Okay. Any questions for Dan on the fire side of things?
Thank you, Dan.
You did a fine job, Dan, thank you. You got your first year out, so next year you'll be more calm.
They did not give you a good department for a first-year person.
Actually, it was only,
I will just tell you
Only a
that.
couple
Did
of
you get to
requests.
go see the stations and the equipment, or?
Well, they offered to take us up in the ladder truck.
yeah, good for that.
I'll pass it on to you if you would like it.
I just really want to go from the left.
Okay, Brad, you're doing double duty because you're doing Parks and Rec and also Department of Public Works and Sewer.
I mean, I don't know.
What's Brad handling, Jim?
He's doing
No, right, seriously.
Parks and Rec Recreation, and he's filling in for Kimberly at the last minute with Department of Public Works and Sewer.
So vehicles begin on page 2.
Brad Parkhurst, community member at large. I am not the new kid on the block.
We already know that, Brad.
I
You
know,
can keep going.
And you walk
unfortunately-
around the block every
Unfortunately,
day.
everybody knows, yes, I do. Everybody knows me, and just to make it better, I'm going to put on my reading glasses, so therefore you will all become distorted. You'll still see me, but I won't be able to make out what you're doing when you're grimacing, smiling, other things.
Good.
All good, Brad.
All right, I'm gonna start with DPW. I didn't do much with the vehicles. I left that up to Adam and his crew. They know better on their vehicles, when they should be replaced, when they need to be replaced. We're not talking about mileage, we're talking about hours that these vehicles are used. And as you know, DPW has a good number of vehicles. And overall, as I said, I'll leave it up to them. If anybody had any specific questions on any vehicle, I'll jot it down and check with Adam.
Move on.
Moving on. All right, I'm now on page 3 of 9. About halfway down, you'll see line 119, and it says Public Works Project. As we listened to the presentation from the department head, or Adam, we were pretty much in agreement as far as the road plan was concerned, and because this has been worked out for the $1,600,000 over a 5 to 6 year period, and we're good with that. Traffic signal upgrades, as you see, he's got them spaced out to 2022, 2023, and 2024. Again, we're good with the project he has there. I won't go through every one. There's a bunch of bridge repairs in here. Some of that will be tax appropriated money. Some of that will be money that we might get from the state. I believe it's in 80% the state would give us if they're in agreement. And then there's a culvert. You see an item under there, it's called the air curtain permit, where it's out for $135,000 in this upcoming year. What that basically is a big oven. Right now, when people bring their debris to the transfer station, it used to be twice a year that they would bring in somebody to grind it up and truck it away at $10,000 a pop. Now it's up to 4 times a year, so you're talking $40,000. Adam says by buying the big burn unit would burn substantially and create an ash that may be able to provide revenue later on. There's no guarantee on that. But it would basically pay for itself in 2 to 3 years. Rather than have somebody come in, they would be able to burn all. If you've been there sometime and seen the amount of brush that's there, it's quite a bit. Yeah. And when I say brush, I'm talking leaves and everything. Again, the bridge repairs, hopefully grant, but it might be tax appropriations that they've got. Some of it's recovery, like the East Dunbarton Road, where they had the road failure a year ago. So we basically left those dates there. You can read the numbers on each projection for the year, and also the prioritization. The next one coming up, where we looked at and brought forward from year 2023, was the recycling building compactor at $50,000. The reason we did this is because it's nearing the end of its life, the compactor. And we felt we brought it forward, we get it replaced now, before a year from now or less, it fails. When it fails, then most of what's in recycling has to go into trash, which costs more money. And when they move it, for those who don't know, the recycled items go to Massachusetts. The trash goes to Bethlehem. But we don't want the system to fail. It's just like your car. You know, it's preventive maintenance. And we just felt it was more to our advantage to move it forward and get it replaced before it failed, because they've had to patch it on occasion. Questions on that one? The next item is the transfer truck scale. It was originally scheduled for 2025. Tax appropriation at $75,000. What this is replacing the current scale that's there, which was installed when the DPW moved down there, and I don't remember the year. As you know, it's below ground. So when it rains, snows, dust storms, locust, whatever, they all go down there. And it has failed and it's been replaced. Not replaced, but fixed. Band-aided is the right word. What they want to do is replace it with an above ground, which would provide a better scale that would require less maintenance. Because if the scale fails, obviously we can't weigh anybody bringing in items that have to, they pay. It's a source of revenue. So we felt that it would be better to move this forward, again, just like the compactor, fix it now, not when it fails. Questions?
Just a comment, but we also weigh, a lot of times we weigh the trailers before they go out to make sure they're not overweight.
You're probably right, Phil, I don't know.
Yeah, they do.
They do?
And
Okay.
we weigh salt trucks.
Right.
So
Okay.
they're-
It's
So
a way
they're
of
not
checking
overweight.
our invoices.
Because if we get a trailer that's overweight because we got a broken scale and we couldn't fix it, and he's halfway to Bethlehem, and if you know the ride to Bethlehem, when
I
you go
do.
over.
I do.
Okay, you don't wanna get pulled over, okay, be fined, and then have to go back.
Okay. Well, thanks for bringing that up, Phil, I appreciate it. More questions, comments?
Nope, not for me.
All right, the
Anybody
next one we have is line 32, 132, is the highway garage ventilation and fire suppression system, originally scheduled for 2026. It's a $250,000 tax appropriation. The reason why we're moving this forward is it's a matter of necessity in the long run. The building, the main building down there is structurally sound. But for those of you who don't know, before there's a storm coming in winter, they move every possible vehicle into the building. So when they have to fire them up, you can imagine what's emitted from the exhaust system. So that's a hazard. The other part is there's no sprinkler system in that building because at the time they were on well water, which was insufficient. Now they're in a position to hook up, because when they put the fields in down there, which I'll get to later, they put in, they tied into that water line. So there's much better water pressure and they're not going to have a field. And they find by combining the CO2 and the fire suppression and the ventilation together, it would be much more cost effective to do it now. In that case, as I said, we get all the trucks in the building and we have a fire. We're in deep trouble. And as you know, or in my opinion, the DPW does an amazing job in keeping our roads clear. And I don't want to see any hazard for all the people that have to get in there at night and fire up a truck to get out to clean the roads for us. So that's why we moved that forward. Questions or comments there? Okay. That's all I got for DPW. If you flip the page to page 4. This is sewer. Most of the sewer projects, not most of them, all of them, if you can look out how they have them scheduled from 22 to 23 up to 2027. All these projects are in the Bernardville area. The reason being is the clay pipes there are failing. They were put in 1958. As they fail, the roots go in there, they get clogged, they get blocked, they can back up into people or the private residents and everything. So sewer has come with this plan to replace. You can read the name of the streets, I won't do that. And they feel this is definitely needed. They need to concentrate in the Bernardville area right now. That doesn't mean they're going to ignore the town part either. but that's the most important need. The best part about this is this is self-funded. It all comes from the sewer fund to pay it, so it has no tax impact. They gain their dollars by user fees and from accessibility fees, if I said that right.
You did.
Yep.
Accessibility fees is when somebody's new is gonna tie in. User fees is somebody like me,
Annual.
when I get a bill every 6 months now, is it?
Yes. You're right.
So, as I said, it's a lot of project in Bernardville, but there's no tax impact. Questions or comments there? All right, since I was lucky enough to get 3 to do, I don't know why, maybe it's because I'm not the new kid on the block. We'll go on to Parks and Recreation, which is page 5. Put on your glasses, Brad, so you can read it. You see line 179, which is the sports complex. A priority 3 right now, and it's scheduled for 2024 for $1 million. Again, the funding can come from various sources. When we just completed phase 1, this is phase 2. Phase 1, we now have 2 rectangular fields, and this last Sunday was the first time they were used. By the Junior Grizzlies, and there's also a flag football league. Everything went over quite well, and they're going to be used, constantly until the snow flies. Everything went well. 2024, we're looking to build more rectangular fields, maybe a couple of diamonds, and these would be small diamonds like Little League or softball. The reason being is school. We originally talked with school about a baseball diamond. School is going to look to the property that they have behind the high school. So this is for more rectangular fields, and believe it or not, we don't seem to have enough of those because you've got soccer, you've got lacrosse, you got field hockey, and you got them starting at age 5 to, through high school. But again, it can come out of the revolving fund, grants, bonds, impact fees, to be looked at for 2024. Questions on that? Moving on to the next item, which is 180. It's a centralized pool at Barnard, which is scheduled for 2023. It was scheduled at $2 million. We've moved forward $50,000 till next year. Somewhat similar to the idea behind the Mass Road Fire Station, where this would be for planning and design of how the new pool would be built. The engineering study we had conducted in 2019, I might have the year wrong, and feasibility showed that there's a lot of code things that we need to look at, especially with the building, the pumps, the electricity. It's outdated. That's about it. And the idea was behind it is, again, design and planning to look at is a centralized pool. Not ignoring Roy Park, but perhaps making Roy Park a splash pad. This is all, pie in the sky right now. But with moving the $50,000 forward, and also in the event there's unexpected expenses. So that's why we moved the $50,000 forward there for next year, and taking $50,000 away from 2023. Questions there?
I have a question. So, were people able to use the pool this summer? I don't recall if.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then.
Yeah, programs and pool are open.
Okay, I just didn't know because of the lining issue. And I know you touched upon because Roy Park also needs the liners replaced as well, correct?
Roy Park needs quite a bit of work. We're losing a lot of water out of Roy Park.
Okay. I'm just wondering how the decision was to. The decision was made and how to put Bernard Park first over Roy Park.
It hasn't been made.
It has.
This
Well,
is
how the
more than a
proposal-
placeholder, right?
Yes.
But we want to do some planning, and part of the planning, I just want to respond to that, is
Sure.
community planning and what you want to see. But before we do that, we've got to have some proposal and some cost of what it's going to be. But we haven't, well, it's not our job to make a decision, but we do need 1 or 2 new pools, and the current proposal is 1. But, town in this wisdom can change its mind.
And another reason behind to look at that, I'm on the Parks and Rec Commission. We had a staffing problem this year for lifeguards. And it's not unique to us, everybody. And it's kind of looking at the future, again, we're talking 2024. Maybe it's gonna get pushed out again, I don't know. But the idea behind all this is, let's plan now, and, the bonding, the funding, and if it will come around, we can do it. Anything else? And the last little item on there is the electronic message center at the rec building. I'd like to put that in, it's for the operating budget, but we're also looking for volunteers and donated material. The idea is it's similar to the one at the police station, besides having just Parks and Rec information on there, pound information. Because it's right on the main road coming into town. And hopefully people, when the police or DPW will put up those message boards, when there's construction or something, people look at it. They probably don't, but that's okay. So it would be a message board, a community message board. And I didn't touch on the truck, but the truck's programmed out for 2024, I think. And then it'll be 10 years or 12 years old, 12 years old. Again, lots of hours towing it around. Any other questions?
Anybody have any questions for Brad? If not, we thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Brad.
Hope I didn't take up too much of your time.
No, you're good.
We'll deduct your seconds. I think the last presentation is Gail's that I'm going to do, which she couldn't come, which is the police. If you go to it consists of vehicles and equipment. Vehicles are on page 1 at the top. As you know, we have a replacement schedule for the police cruisers. We try to replace 3 a year. And that way you keep renewing. So it's just staying on that schedule. It's a pretty simple system as you go out there. But we have a total of 10 line cruisers, 15 cruisers in all. It costs about $46,000 now to purchase and outfit a police cruiser. One of the questions was what happens with the chip shortage and stuff, and it might move things back, but we're going to try to keep on the schedule. So that's the vehicles. It's part of what we're doing.
I think it's worth noting, Jim, that PD vehicles are passed down through other town departments.
yeah.
When they go through the police department use program, and when they're done with them, they pass them down to other town departments. So they're being recycled through the whole town for whatever life's left in them.
Yeah, I think the departments make the police clean out the donut crumbs and coffee cups, but I'm not sure about that.
If you don't get pulled over tonight.
Then go to page 3, the top line 99, the police projects. The main issue here that the chief emphasized was it's the radio communication system. It's obsolete. They can't buy parts on Amazon. It's beyond updating. It's at risk of failure. If your police communication system fails, you got a real problem. You have a safety issue. So this is his big issue, and we agreed. We've got to do this. You can't put it off. Suddenly it won't work. So the radio project we've moved as a priority item next year. It's expensive, but the costs of not doing it are very large in public safety. The police radio console we pushed back, but that's for the dispatches. They need to upgrade those because those are more than 10 years old. And then the locker room expansion. One of the issues the chief emphasized is the challenge of attracting and retaining police officers to Goffstown, because our salaries aren't that great compared to some places. So you need to give them a good working environment, and the police building was a much smaller force, so they're the facilities are really inadequate, so if you want to, he wants to create a, you know,
There was only
quality.
one female officer at the time.
Yeah, and now
Yeah, we have,
it's several,
like,
so they,
That was
3 or 4 or
Sula
something
Bell.
like that?
yeah, last year we did, we
Oh,
did
really?
Yeah, a lot
a
more
locker
now.
room for the women, but now he wants to
Which is
upgrade
great.
Oh,
inside.
yeah.
It's set up for the 6 women that we currently have on
6
the
women,
force.
okay.
Yeah,
And
but
they
anyway,
can all-
we thought that,
We need gendered locker rooms?
well, he said one of the things we're gonna go to is probably not by the time we build it,
Sure.
but you need to upgrade, yeah, he says, you have to start, he's progressive in that sense, that, you know, that's something we'll look at. But,
Jim-
so it's out a few years, but we just want people to know it's, now, if we end up deciding to build a new police station, which is a possibility of, you might wanna consider, this would not be necessary, but that's not in the matrix, so that's not for us to propose.
So Jim, I'd like to go back to the radio renovation.
Mhm.
That's establishing a capital reserve fund with $500,000 deposits over a 4-year period.
Yep.
So it's $2 million for the radios,
Yeah,
what we're
it's
talking
a huge
about.
project, yeah, it's very big, correct.
You didn't say
No,
that, that's
no,
why I
I
was just
didn't, I was
making sure
looking
it
at
came
next
out.
year, thank you. I was trying to be brief.
Okay.
Cheap.
Is that what you call it?
What's another 1.5 mil, come on?
Yeah,
Between friends, right?
Yeah.
that's overbrief.
Yeah, well, sorry.
All right,
Um,
any questions for Jim on police projects or police vehicles? Barbara?
This is probably gonna be also for Mark. When this radio system that they have now was purchased way back in the days that I recall, at that point, the police were the emergency control center.
Correct,
And now it is the fire department.
correct.
And the fire department has their nifty little things. And there was always an issue with the communication back and forth
Correct.
between the systems. So I don't hear anybody talking about fire department in this. So are we going forward on 2 separate ventures, or are we doing something together?
The radio system is going to be a joint venture between police and fire. The fire has purchased, through the grants, all the new portables. They purchased all of the new radios to go into the vehicles. For the fire department, one of the last
Into the
part-
fire vehicles?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
One of the last parts is to get the brain or the hub of the communications center updated, upgraded, so that everything will work. The study was done by an independent contractor, and that independent contractor, his exact words were, "We're one step away from a catastrophic failure." And if we have a catastrophic failure, what's gonna happen is Goffstown, Dunbarton, Ware, New Boston, the 5 or 6 towns that we work with police and fire, will have no communications at all. I know if you remember, a couple months ago, there was a motor vehicle accident on Mast Road, right by Bob Nado's, where the car hit a pole and had a fire. Well, that's, our fiber optic cable comes up Mast Road, goes into town here, and it goes around. And that fiber optic cable burnt, and we lost everything for a period of time. We were dead in the water.
Okay, so let me rephrase my
Yeah.
question. The fire department has undertaken update of their individual units.
Correct.
It doesn't sound like the brains of the system have been updated. Is the brains of the system going to be at the fire department, or is it gonna remain at the police department with dispatch? And is what the police department acquiring consistent with whatever the long-range plan is for the communication that apparently fire has already started?
Yes. The brains of the operation, or the main communications of the operation, will be at the police station.
Will remain with dispatch?
Will remain
Dispatch.
at dispatch, correct.
Okay, all right,
We,
thank you.
go ahead, Mark.
Everything, the whole hub is at the police station. Everything runs out of there and just feathers out.
We did ask both chiefs were there, whether the systems will connect both, because in the past, one
Right.
fire had analog and he
Yep,
said digital.
digital, correct.
And this gets them all in the same system, so they're not 2 separate systems. That exhausts my knowledge of the subject, by the way, but at least we
Okay.
thought we should have 2 separate systems.
So, just piggybacking on that, is that total cost,
It's not.
or the total updates that won't be fully completed until 2024, is that?
Well, we're not sure yet. We're still discussing that, and we haven't come up with a plan yet. It could either be stretched out over the 3 or 4 year time, or it could be all in one shot.
Okay.
We're not sure yet.
When we discussed it, we did not know.
All right, let's have this discussion another night.
Okay, but that's why it's presented this way. So,
Sorry.
Fine, it's not germane to the CIP
No,
process.
no, it isn't, but I just want to explain that we don't have all the answers when we do this.
Well,
here.
it is to make sure that there's not another expense coming in fire to tie in to police.
No.
And
Once
that was
again,
really
all
where I
this
was
is
going.
reviewed at the board, select board level and at the budget committee level, so if you have questions that you want answered specifically and you want numbers reviewed, I think that's the next step.
Can I just
Unless
ask-
we're opting to change them here at our level, which
Can I just ask Jim a question? We have 2 sets of minutes from July and August that were provided to us by Danielle, like when she handed out the matrix. Do those, since the committee is no longer meeting, do you approve these tonight?
Why don't the committee stick around for a minute and we'll approve, have they seen them?
Yeah,
They
that's
should have
a
all had
CIP
received
committee.
copies.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Okay, all those say aye? Okay, approved. And
Who seconded that?
Richard abstains because I don't know if you missed one.
No.
Okay. Okay,
It's enough
that
CIP
concludes
business.
our formal presentation. I want to thank the committees and the staff, the committee members and the staff. You saw how good they were, particularly, of course, Brad. And I request that the planning board adopt the CIP program as presented.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, there's been a motion to adopt the CIP matrix as presented this evening by Barbara and Karen. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. We thank all of you folks for your time
Thank
working
you
on
for
CIP.
coming.
Thank you for coming this evening.
Good night.
And Dan, we got your email, you got the phone number. You can't escape us, you're on the list.
Yeah, the volunteer application for multiple positions will be emailed to you tomorrow with
Right.
instructions for what committees you should be applying.
This is not,
Oh,
this
you're-
is not a job fair. Let's move on.
New residents at the,
We already get,
And Phil, that was your phone, by the way.
Yeah, it was. I
Thank
didn't
you.
realize, it sounded like it
New
come from
resident?
over there.
All right. The first old business item this evening is map 33, lot 17 and 18, relief from the outer 50 feet of the 100-foot wetland setback. Joanne, could you please give us, this was continued from August 12th, 2021.
Correct. So, the applicant is here along with Alden, who is the wetland scientist. As you remember, there were 2 lots on this property, and the applicant would like to do a lot line adjustment and then do a subdivision to create an additional lot for a total of 3 lots. And one of the driveways for one of the lots is within the wetland 100-foot buffer. He did meet with the Conservation Commission, and they recommended that granting of the relief.
Yeah, I believe so, Phil.
Excuse me.
they recommended granting or not
No,
granting?
not granting, I'm sorry, I'm not granting relief, as there are 2 existing buildable lots, and any disturbances, thank you, within the buffer could have a negative impact to Bog Brook. There was also, here you go. There was also a
Coming down the road.
suggestion made in my staff report to possibly ask the applicant to look at the possibility of doing a shared driveway with the, with lot 17, so that the driveway for the other lot, which, let me see, I can't even see this anymore, lot 65, no.
33-17.
33-17. No, that's the middle lot. the lot on the left where the,
3317-1.
one, I'm sorry, there
Joanne,
it
do you
is.
need to get your glasses out or something?
No.
Well, let's
these are
put 'em
for
on.
distance. So anyway, the lot for 3317-1 is is the lot with the driveway that goes through the 100-foot buffer. If that possibly could be eliminated, and on the opposite side of lot 3317, a shared driveway could somehow be constructed, but I know the applicant would prefer not to have a shared driveway, because it doesn't usually, for the most part, they don't work out very well. So the application has already been accepted. It has no regional impact, and they would just like to present their modifications, and Alden will give his report on the wetlands impacts to the buffer.
Board members, question for Joanne.
When the Conservation Commission voted to not recommend, they put anything in writing to us about,
Yes,
with an explanation?
I can read you exactly what they said. They voted to not recommend the granting of relief of the outer 50 feet of the 100-foot wetland conservation district buffer, as there are 2 existing buildable lots, and any disturbances within the buffer could have a negative impact to Bog Brook, that is a viable surface water brook that feeds into the Piscataqua River. But the wetland scientist has a different opinion on that, so
course he does.
I'll let them speak for themselves.
Of course he does.
Well, just to have one follow-up, with the wetland specialist at the Conservation Committee?
He was not,
I was not.
Okay.
so,
I represented the plans.
so the detailed information possibly was not conveyed.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff at this point from board members? If not, we'll ask you folks to identify yourself. And by the way, Mike, congratulations. I saw your son's picture in the paper.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm Mike Dahlberg. I'm the land surveyor that prepared these plans. To my left is Alden Boschman, the certified wetland scientist, and to my right is Joe Boschman, owner and managing member of Falcon Heights Properties LLC. I would like to speak to what happened at the Conservation Commission meeting for some clarity, because the minutes from the Conservation Commission don't reflect what actually happened. They dismissed our request out of hand. Didn't even get a chance to present our data. They just said, we are putting our foot down, and that's it. They never looked at the report, they never looked at the plans, we didn't even get to make a presentation.
Okay.
Alden can clearly demonstrate that where the driveway is going is not going to have an impact on that resource. And I will say we would like to have a separate driveway. If the board feels they need to support the Conservation Commission and would allow us to have a driveway easement for lot 17-1 over lot 17, that can be worked. We can meet all of our site distances. But just in the interest of fairness, we did not get a fair shake at the Conservation Commission. And the fact that they say there's 2 lots now and they can build on 2, well, that's true. However, it's my client's right to pursue highest and best, which includes, the yield of a 3rd lot. And the ordinance allows for relief of the outer 50-foot buffer. So by the town ordinance, they're allowed to pursue that. And I know that this has occurred all over town dozens and dozens and dozens of times prior to this application.
With approvals or without?
It's just been done with I don't know how many have.
Well, when you say dozens, Mike, I'd like to qualify that.
The
If it's an old driveway that's in the outer 50, that's different than something that was approved by way of the planning board. I'd like to make sure that it's clear.
There are many projects throughout town that there were encroachments into the outer 50 feet that did not through the section, was it 13 in the zoning? Through that whole process, we have the report, we have the demonstration through construction plans and drawings that we can demonstrate to this board that we will not have an impact on the resource. And we would have liked to have been able to make that presentation to the Concom, but they just wouldn't have it. So my client is trying to exercise his rights to obtain the third lot. The only question is, what is the access going to be? We meet all the requirements. Period.
Barbara, do you want a question?
Yeah, I do have a question for Mike. You made some comments about conservation. I don't see anybody here, so I don't know. I haven't reviewed the video. But
Please do.
I might. I will take you at your word that you were not allowed to present it. But regardless, the recommendation to us is that they do not recommend it. So you talked about dozens and dozens and dozens of places around town where relief from the outer 50, I might get my yardage right, has been granted, as if it happens all the time. So can you tell me a time that the planning board has granted relief from the outer 50 when the Conservation Commission did not recommend it?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
But the ordinance says that we need to get comments from the Conservation
Right.
Commission.
No,
It doesn't say they have to be positive.
No, I just wanted to make sure I understood the history, as I recall it, of this board over the years.
Karen?
Didn't we recently have this issue come before us when Collis was here? It was an issue they requested, or I forget which project it was for. And the Conservation Committee said no, and essentially we came to the conclusion of something to the effect of, if you get the Conservation Committee on board, then we'll grant it.
I don't remember that.
I don't know, it was like a couple of months ago or something like that. But we
Check
didn't
your
grant
notes.
it. I know, I don't have all of them with me. We didn't.
He's the one with all the
I'm
notes.
just saying we didn't say yes against the
I just wanted to
Conservation
clarify
Committee
what Mike had
Commission's
said in
recommendation.
regards to history. Okay.
All right, Mike, would you continue, please?
So I'll let Alden make his presentation regarding the on-site conditions and what he sees as the wetlands professional and a permitting specialist for dredge and fill permits and erosion control and the like up at DES and in many towns in the area. And then I guess we'll just talk to the board. And
So I'm assuming this is the report that we have, Joanne, in front of us?
Yes, the report is, the full report looks like this. Yeah, everybody have a
Got
copy.
the relief application on the cover stapled to it.
Yes, and then there's a plan attached to it which shows a close-up of that area of Bog Brook and the
So
setback area.
Alden's report begins, I guess, after the application submittal requirements. Dated August 4th, Alden, is that the report?
Correct.
Okay. So could you please give your name for the record, Alden?
Yeah, Alden Bozeman from Keelan Enterprises. I'm a private land consultant, septic designer, wetland scientist. I deal with wetland issues around the state. I was also involved years back at the state level on the drafting of the current buffer document that is specified and used by the state of New Hampshire, so I do know something about buffers. This particular case here, I did look at, I flagged the wetlands, and just for the record too, I know there was a question at the Conservation Commission as to when I did flag them. I flagged them in March, the 14th of March, and there was no snow cover, so I did see physically the ground, and I was able to do a good determination. And Mike and his crews went out to the site, and they located all the flags, and you'll notice on the plans, the individual flag locations were numbered and located by Mike's staff. Did a great job, and so the plan is very accurate. There is a brook that runs along the outer side and rear of the property, and as you can see, there's a great deal of wetlands on surrounding this property. But what makes this impact different is obviously where they're proposing to drive. You have an existing, the tree line doesn't show on this plan, but I think it did on the sketch. You can see on the sketch that was provided in the report where the tree line is and where they were proposing the driveway itself. There was absolutely no impact to trees. It's an open field area that was maintained for years as a field and plowed. Not only that, but the impact itself is very close to the Boston Road. So, what as far as the values and so forth of your wetland, they've already been impacted by the Boston Road. And so you'll notice from the report, they're looking to encroach the outer 50-foot buffer by a total of 35 feet. Total disturbance is 4,500 square feet. You'll also notice in the report, I just touched on some of the site parameters we just discussed. I also went through the functions and values. Obviously, there's a lot of functions and values of importance, but again, we're impacting an area that's already disturbed, we're adjacent to an existing road that's already affected those functions and values. And so, at the end of the day, as long as they provide, as I stated in my conclusion, adequate construction and maintenance of erosion control and so forth, there shouldn't be any problem. So again, I'll read it for the record. While the adjacent wetland surface waters are of great value, all the proposed construction and regrading is with an existing field area with no disturbance of existing wooded buffer. In addition, the area of any impact is near the existing road and other nearby homes. Overall, given the impact from this driveway, there is no compromise or impact to any functions, values, or conditions of this important wetland resource as a result of this proposed project, provided proper construction and erosion control procedures as outlined below are followed. Number one, any proposed disturbance will be minimized by placing excavation fill outside the buffer. Number two, all site grading shall be restored and stabilized with bark mulch or grass seed as necessary. And then three is just your standard erosion control. Questions?
First question is for Mike. Mike, how long is this driveway proposed to be?
It is 235.
As long as, is it gonna be under the NFPA requirement?
Yes, it is.
Because that is another standard for a driveway.
That's correct. It's going to be under the 300.
Okay, so you will not be.
It's well under the 300.
That was my only question, thank you.
Jim, I have a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
Alden, you talked about in your report about protection to the wetland during the construction. What about after that? This thing is in operation after it's
Yeah, well,
constructed.
that's a very good
What
point.
happens?
That's a very good point, because I know the town typically likes to take and flag, stake the buffer. Is that what you're thinking?
Well, just, it's over time.
Yes,
We
no, it's a
know
very-
that these people
Yep.
tend to encroach.
Yep,
I should address that.
that's a good point. So markers could be placed.
Yeah,
So give me a number, a footage number,
Right.
whatever it is, 65 feet, and then when it ties back to the 100-foot
Yeah.
at the building envelope, so it could be 65 feet and then tie it back to the 100-foot.
So we could place the placards, and they would be in the open field, along this line until where it hits the
100-foot.
100-foot. And we could put placards.
You might even want to do a nice fence or something, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is, I'll address this directly to Joe. Joe, this is our annual discussion, our always discussion about when someone comes in with a proposal where the building envelope and the 4K area occupy the entire buildable area outside the wetland buffer. Because we know how people tend to
Migrate.
look at it as this is my property and that's a nice dry field. I'm gonna have, get a barn or put in a pole barn or something. And we can't, as a board, we can't control what people do after an approval or is granted, if it is granted. But we have to always look at these questions and try to come up with answers so that we do our best to protect these resources. So that's directed directly at you, Joe, so you, as the developer, I want to make sure that you know that, and you've been on this board, so you know what it's like.
Yeah.
I would like to point out that in terms of protecting the resource, when the town redid, rebuilt the bridge here, replaced this bridge, they constructed a swale that runs from the edge of the right-of-way right directly to the wetlands.
Did they get an easement from the landowner?
They did not.
Well, that's another subject for that you, as a
Well, I
landowner, to
understand.
discuss with DPW.
But, we're not proposing anything like that.
I understand your point, Mike, but it's really,
Well,
Is there a culvert pipe too?
yeah, and there's a culvert that
Discharge.
discharges,
so I see you're proposing a 12-inch culvert under the driveway?
because we
So
have to.
so that would feed into that swale that you're talking about?
It actually might go to the northeast before the swale.
Okay.
We're not proposing to connect the two.
Jim, did you have your hand up?
No, I'm thinking. Thank you.
So I think the board would probably be looking for some effort on your part to show on a plan at some point that you would provide placards or some sort of information to any prospective purchaser that these are where the wetland delineators are and
That's all.
you can't go in there.
I've used the placards before. I find them to be quite effective. Little diamonds, do not, buffer, don't disturb. I'm happy with that, Mike.
Yeah, we've done this in other towns where we tried to put them on trees and the like. So what we do is we get a heavier sign and we get the steel
Green-
posts.
The green garden posts, the fence
Yeah.
posts?
And we bang them in so they're about, the top's like 4 feet high. Put the placards on.
Are they hard to get out of the ground?
They are very hard to get out of the
That's a
ground.
good thing.
And it's a condition of approval. They have to be set before the plans will be signed.
And the unfortunate fact is that we have no one in town that ever goes out and checks anything like that. So, it's all good faith and it's all trust, you know what I'm saying?
Well, we can set them and take pictures.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to police that, but I know that's what we
We
do.
don't either.
We do in other towns.
I understand.
You have it recorded in the deed.
Yeah, in fact, I was just thinking of that myself. In
I was
fact,
gonna ask
That's how you do it.
Yeah,
You have
no,
it
I think that's
recorded
a
in the
great
deed.
thing to educate people, because at the end of the day, people don't look at these plans once they're recorded, but they do look at their
Then
deed.
when
No, we're also gonna
they
look
go
at
to a closing,
Yes.
The title
Okay.
company.
and they do that will come up.
Yeah, I'd be more than willing to take and come up with some nice verbiage for, and the deed or something with Mike and.
Questions
So a
from board
notation
members?
in the deed beyond the plan
On,
reference.
yes,
Okay.
beyond the plan, we could submit draft
Condition of
copies.
approval?
I would be curious on the plan, the Conservation Commission made a finding on impact on functions and values, because that is what our ordinance, that's the standard that we have. We were, I guess I'd call it a compromise when we did the ordinance, recognizing that some lots would be unbuildable if we didn't allow some encroachment, but we didn't want to open the door too wide. But we don't have enough information on other than what Mike told us and what the Conservation Commission's findings were. I don't know if they found anything.
Well, their minutes would reflect the fact that they didn't
I
even
don't- we don't-
discuss it.
We don't have those.
And Collins isn't here, so.
I was at the Conservation Commission meeting last night myself, but I think I must have left before you were there.
No, I was there last month.
Oh, last
last
month.
month.
Oh. Barbara?
Question, and I think it's for Alden, with the map that you've got up there, I just want to clarify. So the green is the setback,
The total
The 100-foot wet buffer.
swamp.
right? So you've got the brook there, but the reality is all of that white between the blue and the green is wetlands, right?
Correct.
Okay, so the map in regards to the proportion of what we're talking about is a little, and I understand why you did it to accentuate the wetback, is a little deceptive. It's actually quite a big wetlands area back there. And so I just want that to be clear for the record, because this is a huge wetland area. So then when I go to your report, and you're talking about the perennial stream. And granted, we're sort of looking at this a little more because of what happened at conservation or didn't happen, depending on your point of view. But the reality is, a board member, I'm here with a not recommend. So we've got a table 1, summary of principal functions and values. And more yeses than nos, right? And then I guess we just have this conclusion that there's no compromise. So are there any numbers anywhere as to what the impact would be? Because I think I heard the driveway is 4,500 square feet of impact, which is a tenth of an acre, a little over a tenth of an acre. And that's just in the wetlands. So what are we actually talking about for the impact of the driveway? Because it's hard to tell from the report.
Yeah, no, I don't know what you're really thinking, but if you compared it to the size of the wetland, it's just a small percentage, if you want to look at it that way.
So is that, it's hard to tell what you're looking at to come to your conclusion. So was that the basis of your conclusion, that, because you talked about, while the wetland surface water is of great value, the proposed construction is within the existing field area with no disturbance of the wooded buffer, and the impact is near the existing road and other nearby homes. But we're talking about, and granted, we're not up to the big driveway standards, we're going to be in there a few hundred feet, and that's just in the wetlands, right? So that's sort of your conclusion, is that the wetland area is so big that whatever this amount is, it's just not an impact? Because you can't tell from this report.
Yeah, no, that would be a good argument. I guess, I've been around Goffstown for a while, and I understand where the Conservation Commission's coming from, but, what we've been dealing with and what I'm hearing from Mike, and I've seen it before, and I've been to other meetings, is that the conservation, it wants to be very firm on this 100 feet.
But that's not what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
Alden. I'm
Yeah.
asking you,
Yeah.
based on, what is the basis for your conclusion? Is it a numerical based on the wetlands that you have? Is it just a general, this isn't very
Okay.
much based
Okay.
on the site?
Yeah.
Because I don't have any idea how much square footage of wetlands we're talking about here.
Okay, so I guess the main thing is, when it comes to buffers,
Can I just, it's not square footage of wetlands.
Well-
it's- Okay, I just wanted to.
Sorry.
No, no.
I
so I
don't have any idea
think to
how
answer
big
your
it is
question,
for the impact calculation.
when
We
it
would
comes to,
need to know.
when it comes to the evaluation and so forth and buffers, the whole intent of the buffer is to prevent sedimentation and so forth and getting into the wetland itself.
Right.
And so, honestly, and even the state's report that talks about buffers at the state level, 100-foot buffer is extreme. Not many towns have buffers like this, except Goffstown and a few others. And if you recall, I don't know if you all were around at the time, but when Goffstown adopted that buffer at the time, they said to us that the reason that they were doing it was because residential owners do not recognize where the wetlands are. And so therefore, if this is a commercial district in the town of Goffstown, the buffer requirement is 0. And the reason for that was because supposedly when you do a site plan in the town of Goffstown, and it didn't make any sense to me, but because you were doing a site plan and actually flagging the wetlands and locating them and doing a real detailed plan, again, the buffer requirement was 0. And it makes total no sense whatsoever, but that's the way the rules are in Goffstown to this day. And so when I look at a situation like this, you know, commercial, if we're in the commercial zone, it's 0. And the fact of the matter is, you know, there is no 100-foot is excessive. We've shown by state studies that 25 feet is more than adequate. And again, with proper erosion control and construction of the driveway, there's absolutely no impact to this wetland.
So I guess my question is, Alden, did you do any calculations for this report? Or was this based on your experience and your field survey?
Wetland evaluations are very subjective.
Okay.
Okay, and so basically it's based on my experience. There are no technical calculations that you can possibly do that way. If you want to look at, like you said, the amount of impact to the whole wetland system.
Right.
This is a massive wetland system. The impact is minor, especially the fact that you're already impacted by New Boston Road.
It's only actually one side of the brook. The other side has its own wetland impact.
Am I correct in understanding that there's a stormwater drain entering onto the property and going into the brook? Right to the left of the driveway. So the town has a stormwater catch basin drain to the left of the proposed driveway that's entering onto my property and headed to the area that's white that says wetland. I don't know exactly.
We're not gonna get into that tonight because those are, I don't know the history of that drain pipe, whether it's new, old, or anything, and it's not part of the
I've gone to the
discussion.
functions and values of a stormwater drain pipe going in.
Right.
Immediately.
I mean,
I understand your
Yeah, okay, I just.
irritation with it, but it's not something we
It doesn't come
weigh
into our
in, it
account.
doesn't weigh into our discussion.
Just for clarification, the total disturbed area for construction of the driveway, allowing for machines to go back and forth and move the loam and stuff, is 4,500 square feet, but the final impact of the driveway is only 2,400 square feet.
All right, because the 4,500 is what you had said.
Well, because
that's the disturbance.
We're trying to, right, the disturbance.
There's also, there's an additional impact, Mike, is the proposed water line service has to be excavated through the wetland buffer as well to reach the site. It's on the right side of the
And that's
driveway.
gonna go between the driveway
And the
and the
property.
lot line, which is included in that.
You included the
that
wetland calculation, including the water line.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just read the Conservation Commission minutes from August, and basically what Mike said is true. He attempted to explain what he was doing, but he didn't get into the nitty-gritty of the actual impact of the wetland. It was more, you know, this is our site, we want to do a lot line, blah, blah, blah. And then the board members voiced their concerns because they said, oh, this lot is totally surrounded by wetland. And then they all started chiming in that they were not in favor of it. And basically, Collis said, you know, that he hated to use this project, but he said, we're putting our foot down. We're not doing this anymore because this is the way the ordinance reads, and this is how you have to do it going forward. No more impacts to this buffer. And then Mike brought up the fact that, well, there is a waiver request that's an option as part of the ordinance that allows people to come in and ask for relief. So it kind of like just went back and forth, and then it ended with their recommendation.
So is the proposed driveway going over the wetlands or through, okay, can you just,
It's going through,
The buffer.
If there's a buffer of 100 feet,
the wetlands is down here.
Sure,
The
okay.
wetlands is here.
Mhm.
The driveway is gonna go up here,
Now I can.
and we are,
Okay, okay, I got you, thank
we
you.
are in the outer 50 feet
Buffer.
Gotcha.
of the 100-foot buffer, which we can petition the board through a CUP for relief, which is what we're doing.
David,
25-foot driveway gets constructed. The homeowner not only plows, but he overly salts the driveway. Which way is the salt flowing when it sheds off the driveway?
to the low side, like everyone else
To the
builds a
low
driveway.
Well,
side, good, that was good.
Wherever
Tim.
anybody builds a driveway.
The driveway is at about a 2% grade, so it's
2% down.
2%.
Is it possible
Lower
to
from the
shed
Yes,
away from the brook
yeah.
into a grass?
You could back grade that driveway so that the west side is 2/10 higher, and it goes to the east side.
To the property line side.
You
the
answered-
property line.
You answered my question.
It will go-
correctly. Thank you.
Yes,
And then it flows down the edge of the driveway through the culvert and around into the wetlands.
But it would
Well, not if it's
permeate
graded
into the frozen
properly.
soil.
It would be better off to sheet
Probably
flow
would
off
be.
the driveway into the grass, because
Yeah.
grass cleanses all that stuff out, whereas you concentrate the pollutants down into a culvert, it's more concentrated effect on the wetland. That's a state statute. They will
Hence,
tell you that.
the more recent
My
definition.
question for anyone is, I see a picture in Alden's report that shows the grassy field, the proposed location for the new driveway. Whoever can answer the question, what's the history of that grassy field? Did I hear someone say that it's been maintained, it's been plowed, it's been whatever? What's the history of that field? Has it been maintained by the,
It's been maintained for years. and
Yeah.
Obviously, it's still a productive field. It's not all weeds, so somebody obviously has been mowing it.
and soil types there, Mike? What are our soil types?
Hinckley, Group 1.
Hinckley's an assassin. What's Hinckley?
Hinckley is a loamy sand gravel.
Thank you.
It's a group 1 soil that across where the lots would be developed, the cross slope is about 2%,
Okay.
2 feet and 100. It's pretty shallow.
Excessively well drained.
Yes,
It's sand and gravel.
Yes.
meaning whatever water it hits goes right in the ground. It doesn't run off.
It's not frozen.
So conceivably, some sort of a infiltrator drain could be constructed along the edge of any driveway that would take stormwater from the driveway and infiltrate it down into the subgrade, and it wouldn't sheet flow to the wetlands.
Correct.
Good idea.
That's correct.
What did you think of it?
I'll pay him enough.
Well,
You
and
want to start painting?
a couple of the other projects we got conditional use permits on, that's what we did, actually.
We've seen that, and that's
We have
also,
a sheet drain off to the side.
it helps to mitigate.
No, that's a good idea.
Right, so, any questions for the applicants at this time from board members? Have you completed your presentation, gentlemen?
Yes.
I have a question.
Jim?
Mike did propose, offered, maybe not happily, moving the driveway. Why don't we take him up on that offer?
Move it where?
Making an easement on the other lot.
But if I see it, it looks like
We can move that building. I've already designed it, actually, just in the eventuality. So if we put a driveway in that stays off the buffer, we would have a driveway easement that would come like this, along with the water line easement under the driveway. And there's more than enough room to slide this way. There's zero impact on the buildable area, and our site distance is still like 150 feet in excess of the minimum. We were pursuing the driveway through the wetlands for a couple of reasons. I mean, the wetland buffer. My apologies, it's been a long day. One, we really want to stay away from a common driveway. That's just.
So do we, so we agree on that.
We agree on that. We would like a separate drive because people like that in the country, on their lot and no easements, but I guess we're at the pleasure of the board.
Mike, the only other thing I would add, myself personally, if I own the lot, is I really wouldn't like a driveway coming near my house. You know, a little distance between neighbors makes good neighbors, and having a neighbor with a driveway coming near my house, even though we could make it fit, I guess I'd be a little concerned about that, that's all.
It's not ideal. If it was ideal, we wouldn't be here talking about the outer 50 relief. It can be done, but it's not.
Well, it's a question then, with the proposals, the design proposals that you guys are just talking about, and I'm just a lawyer, I don't understand any of it. Does that provide the protection for the wetlands that wasn't brought to the Conservation Commission to give us confidence that we should go ahead? It's been pointed out, we generally follow the Conservation Commission recommendations, but just as with the fire department and others, or even the CIP committee, you're not compelled to. It's, you know, the recommendation to this board, excuse me, I'm asking. So are we prepared to act on that? And we don't have Public Works to comment on that, which they usually do. I don't know
If you-
authoritative on this, but I'm not.
Sorry, if you have any questions, Eric is home, but he has everything with him, and I can certainly get a hold of him right
Well, or
away.
we make that as a proposal and get his comments and bring it back and
But
toss it then. But I'm hesitant for this board to, otherwise, you know, Tim knows a lot, to do engineering solutions without having Public Works at least say, yeah.
Well, can I say something?
Before.
Karen, you wanted to speak first, I heard your voice.
Yeah, I just am wondering, like, okay, so yeah, the recommendations, but how often do we go against any of the recommendations that are made?
Sometimes we do.
Select board goes against us all the time when we make them on class 6 roads.
Yeah. So I start making them.
Barbara?
I'm gonna pass.
Want to think about it?
Yeah.
Well, if the applicants have nothing else to say and the board has no more questions, we're going to open the public hearing.
The applicant can probably stay put.
No problem. I think he said at a coffee shop.
And if anyone here to speak from the public? I'm going to close the public hearing. Board discussion on proceeding.
I would like to see a proposal that then gets, if we're gonna go forward, notwithstanding the Conservation Commission recommendation, I would like to see a specific proposal on how this could be designed that then gets reviewed by Public Works, if we do run drainage things by them. If that's a viable option. I look to you, Tim, to say, yeah, it's a viable option.
Well, I concur with the process. I think that if the applicant representatives have affirmatively stated that this is not going to affect the wetlands, a new driveway in the outer 50-foot buffer. David brought up the question of salt contamination from maintenance of a new driveway. I think it'd be up to the applicant to show us on a plan how the water from that driveway would be handled, via drainage or some sort of mitigation tactic, and let DPW look at that and see where we go from there. Is that what you're looking at, Jim?
It is, you said it better than I do.
Okay. For once. All right, so,
On that basis, I recommend that we continue this to let the applicant come back with some more
Well,
detail.
Doesn't the applicant deserve to know, isn't the question of relief from the buffer different from approval of the subdivision plan?
I think, may I answer that? I think whether we grant relief depends in part on our assessment of what
Okay.
impact it's going to be. They're tied together.
I don't think we can grant the subdivision plan without the driveway being
No.
decided.
Right.
The issue of the driveway has to be decided prior to any vote on a subdivision plan.
Or on the impact on the
Right.
relief from the article.
So,
Well, I know that we can, excuse me, can I speak?
please, Mike.
I know that we can design that driveway to be backgraded into a sheet drain, and a French drain, if you will. And it'll pass Eric or Sarah's inspection. I know that they'll approve it.
When you say back drain, are you talking about having to pitch it the wrong way?
Just pitch it to the east
Okay.
into a trench drain. It will be grassed.
It would pitch to 33-17.
Correct.
The side pitch would be go to 33-17 rather than the side pitch go towards the
And
brook.
we can show that on a construction plan.
Show the placards.
And we can give you a schedule of how it would be laid out and constructed, and even give you an as-built to prove that it's done. I almost think that could be a condition of approval.
I'd like to see it, because maybe should come back to us. In the meantime, I can go to DPW.
Board members?
I would just like the features that Mr. Dahlberg described simply be a condition on approval tonight.
Well, if DPW is not satisfied, the conditions of the conditional approval is invalid, basically.
Correct.
We could say, I guess, to their approval, was that such a word?
Yeah, to their
To their
satisfaction.
satisfaction.
But I think what Tim is saying is if they don't, then it's just,
If we grant a conditional approval
Yeah.
with plan being submitted to DPW for approval, and then that approval being submitted to Joanne, then the approval could be finalized. It's a condition of approval. But if they say no,
Right.
then it has to come back.
But we're supposed to find under the ordinance that functions and values are not affected.
Okay.
We have a report by Alden that says none, but as he said, that's a subjective and, probably so. I want Public Works to say, yes, this will work and will not have the impact on the functions and values, so we can make that finding then to allow us to grant the relief.
Can Public Works make a definitive statement on function and values of the wetlands? They're not wetland scientists.
Well, no, but they can on drainage, and we can draw the conclusion. I think that's a fair question. Recognizing, as Alden said, this isn't a mathematical calculation, but I think we need Public Works to tell us. Because right now, we have a proposal, but we don't know what it's going to look like, so I don't know how we make that determination until it comes back to us.
Can I just get clarification here? So the proposal that you're now possibly entertaining is still remaining in the wetland
Yes.
buffer? The way that Alden has shown,
Yes.
But
Just pitched.
just pitched,
Well,
that's
it
the
is a-
only change.
No, and some of the other protections.
And the placards
Right,
and things,
yeah.
but
Right.
the driveway construction itself would
Just
be
the driveway
pitched.
construction and the issue of salt contamination and how salt leaves the driveway and where it goes after the owner has his driveway salted in the wintertime.
Okay.
And that was David's question.
In making this proposal, I understand the Conservation Commission's concerns, but when we drafted this ordinance, it was intended to have some flexibility, and I think we have to honor that intent as well. And if the applicant is making protections in the design that we're satisfied with, we can make the findings, but I think we have to make those findings. And we have to make it quite that.
Well, Sounds to me like a continuation is in order, Mike.
That's
against-
fine.
Against your wishes.
No, that's fine, I just, you
You
know.
should be,
Can we
we
have,
will have
don't
some-
have to rehash everything we talked about tonight.
I will
We can
have
talk
some to
about-
DPW within the week. And to Joanne and,
Okay, so the next meeting is, I believe, the 8th.
so when we from here to the 8th, will that give Mike time to get it to DPW and DPW time to review?
I'm sorry, not the 8th, the 14th.
October the 14th is
So
the next
that's
meeting.
yeah,
plenty
that's
of time,
plenty
right?
of time.
Okay.
And then you gotta resubmit to Joanne by a certain date, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, we're basically gonna resubmit a cut sheet,
Yeah.
11 by 17 cut
But
sheet.
you know the deadlines for,
Yep.
to that office to make sure you meet their criteria.
I already have the design in my head, and I just gotta put it on paper.
Mike, who are you now employed by?
So what?
Who are you now employed by?
TF Moran. But we started the signed contract with BFC Group with the understanding of finishing it at.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Oh, my.
You
Oh,
get
good,
double
Mike.
billed.
No,
No, Mike's good enough.
no,
You make sure.
no one gets double billed.
All right, Jim, you started to make a motion earlier.
I make a motion, well, I think we've told the applicant what we're expecting, so I'll just make a motion to continue this to the 14th.
Which day, I'm sorry?
Next meeting, which I believe is the 14th?
Yes.
We see you paying
So there's a
attention.
motion by Jim, anybody seconded it? Bill? Motion by Jim to continue this to a date certain of 10/14/21. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, the motion passes.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Alden. Thank you, Joe.
This is my boss. if you would-
Well, it depends. Did he
That's
bring
one of the
it up?
reasons I asked, I wanted him to get credit for it.
So Joanne,
I'm sorry.
Joanne, are we supposed to bring our material that was for the lot line adjustment to the next meeting? Or when
They're
it comes up?
coming on the 28th, so you.
So I guess
save it
everyone
for
needs
the
to
end of
flag
the
this
month.
paperwork for map for Terra Hill Road, so you can bring it with you to the next meeting, so, because Patty will not send it back out. All right, Joanne, our next application is under new business, map 18, lot 60-2. It's a conceptual review for a drive-through coffee shop, Abington Way, lead development zone commercial. Could you give us a rundown, please?
Mr. Chair, before I do that, I confirmed, my firm represents a unit owner in the development, which just said I don't have a conflict in hearing this on a conceptual basis. I'm going to reserve the right to make a different determination when it comes up on the merits, but as of now, I'm not intending to recuse myself.
So I guess I heard what you said, but okay.
Just, I'm here,
Whatever.
whatever.
You're
So
listening.
you're saying you have a potential conflict that could
Well-
affect a
No.
vote on the final?
No, the
No,
client
we
has not
recuse
identified one thus far.
I see.
Yeah, clients have the right to change their minds, so I have to.
So the
reserve that.
potential client is where you
No,
may
I know I
have.
have a client.
No, let's stop.
Just
We
stop.
got
I'm not-
it. Just stop.
I've said all I need to say.
Well, he mumbled, I didn't hear what he said.
Well, that's
what
because I
I'm
just
trying to
running
do.
through the litany. I didn't think you'd have to listen.
Because
All
he's
right.
had to talk so much with CIP tonight. He
I'm
can't.
worn
All
out.
right. So Joanne, the floor is yours.
Okay, so we are here with Dylan Cruz from TF Moran, who's also the owner of the property. This property is located next to Rite Aid and behind Franklin Savings Bank. It is part of a condominium project that the board approved about 2 years ago. This is an existing vacant site that has not yet been developed. And they would like to put a drive-through coffee shop on the site. The project would include a 1,700 square foot retail space for the coffee shop itself, with 10 stacking spaces around the coffee shop to order through the drive-through. And That's about it. So this is the same site that's been before you a few times with some other proposals. I believe, and some others believe, that this is a great location for this type of business.
I'm sorry, could I just ask a question? Was this the same place where the landscaping was, or was that the
Yes,
parcel next to it?
it's the same place,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, thank you.
So Dylan can describe to you what the plan is, and he's just here really for the board's input so that they can move forward and prepare the final plans.
Good evening, everybody.
Well, hang on, Dylan. Board members, questions for Joanne? Okay, you may begin, Dylan.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dylan Cruz. I am with Lead Development, who is the owner of the property since about 2008. As a very brief history of the property, it was approved as a mixed-use development in 2008. At that time, the Rite Aid went in, and then in 2009 into 10, the housing with NeighborWorks went in. Somewhere around 2013, there was actually an AutoZone auto parts store that was approved. They even pulled the building permit, but then at the last second, they decided not to build. Then it was vacant and dormant for a while until about 2018 into 19, when this used to be a park, and that park was removed, and Franklin Savings Bank went in to occupy that part of the development. At that time is when there was a land condominium put in, which essentially, there used to be a property line that went straight up and down this way, and it became a condo parcel with Unit 1 was the park area where Franklin Savings Bank went in, and then Unit 2 was this area in kind of the dark hashed line. In April of 2021, actually just a couple months ago, it was over Zoom, but we did come through with a conceptual planning board meeting for an outdoor maintenance garage from a local landscaper and plowing company. He actually couldn't, he was looking to put a pre-engineered building, and at the time the pre-engineered building company said they were 14 months out. So at that point he just decided that he couldn't absorb that amount of uncertainty. There is also some hesitancy, I think, from the board with that type use, with garage and with construction equipment and vehicles and landscape supply storage all throughout the site. And then there was a second building that would be over here, and there was kind of a lot of, not ambiguity, but there was uncertainty about what the future uses of those would be. The tenants that he was envisioning were kind of contractor type things, which didn't fit into the commercial zone. So all that put in together, he decided that the site was not for him, so he withdrew. And let's see, come forward another 4 or 5 months, and what presentation or what we've submitted for conceptual planning board shows a generic 1,700 plus minus square foot coffee shop with a drive-through and inside seating. There is no definitive or chosen user as the coffee shop for this site. There is another user that actually presented to the TRC committee on September 7th with a different plan and a different user, which just kind of coincidentally or unknown, the TRC application does not have a section that notifies the owner of that somebody applied for TRC. So
It does now.
it does now. It actually,
That's
the other
interesting.
user was in speaking with Joanne, and she said, oh, you know, that's coming before TRC in a couple days. So that's how then that filtered back to the owner. So there was a TRC meeting on September 7th. It was pretty well attended, and we got a lot of good generic feedback from town staff about a very similar, it was a slightly bigger building, but we got some very good feedback from them. So this, again, is culmination as we have had users interested in the site. We have come forward and come before the board to really get your input and see what the next steps should be in moving this forward.
So Dylan, if you had another possible user and they wanted a bigger building, based on your drawings, how would you accommodate a larger building? Would you have to rework all your parking or just extend it within that slot that the building sits in now?
Primarily extend it within that building slot. There's some ability, since this line is kind of just floating, if it needs to get wider, this line just pushes over to, I guess, the northeast a little bit to accommodate that, and it can be done since the land to the right is still vacant. That line just can move a slight amount.
So Joanne, the question for you is about this line we're talking about right now. How do we, this is like a subdivision of the site from what I'm looking at. So how do we look at this with the line, Joanne?
So they would come in and they would change the units, so-called units of the condominium itself, which is all laid out in the condo documents and bylaws, the declaration and bylaws. And that would have to be adjusted. I'd have to look at the documents. I haven't seen them for a while as to how specific they are. Dylan would probably know more.
There is a process whereby that line is further subdividable.
So
it is
But it's
spelled
not,
out in the
it's not a
documents.
subdivision.
I didn't say it was a subdivision.
Sorry, yes.
It
It's
looks like
further
one.
separatable.
So how many units could you put on that site theoretically?
That I don't know
Condo
offhand.
unit?
Meaning how many
Units of what?
time
Well,
could
these
you
are units.
separate unit 2 into...
Could you put another line here and another line there and have bing, bing, bing?
I believe it would, if it conforms to town zoning, I would believe you.
It depends on the use and the zone. I believe it's commercial. How many, what's the acreage of what they're using it for in the commercial zone. So commercial, has to have certain setbacks and all of that. They have to conform to that.
The building does, or all the parking areas as well?
Everything. The land that it's sitting on, the land itself has to conform as well as the building.
Okay.
And I will just say, I think it is our intention to separate that into a separate unit, but that has not been officially decided. So that line is not there as a unit boundary at this time. It's just kind of conceptual where it might be.
Because currently it's all one.
Right.
I see it, land unit 2, 2.08 acres plus or minus.
Yeah.
David?
Dylan, please explain how you derive 28 parking spaces.
That is what the town requirements are.
For the 1,700 feet
For
of
the
the drive-through?
1,700.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
So I think it details it on the plan, but there's,
I just wanted to
yeah, it
interrupt.
was 23 spaces for the 1,700, and then with the drive-through, there's a 5 space, and then ordinance requires 5 stacking, which we're proposing 10.
So this, sorry.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to bring that up because I listened to the conservation last night, and they made a definitive statement that they wanted 28 parking spaces reduced.
They would like to see more green space.
They wanted it what?
They wanted the number of
They
spaces
want more green.
reduced.
It's not a wetlands issue.
And wanted more green.
Oh, well, I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's, will
But,
answer my
so that's the reason I wanted this answer why 28 is the number 28.
I think there could be more green added, I mean, they're not really showing any landscaping on
Right,
here.
Right.
And it, I believe it does meet town ordinance for building coverage areas and,
What was the idea for the other building, the size of the other building?
The TRC building?
Yeah, the TRC building?
that was about a 2,300 square foot building.
If you
and-
know.
And it actually had 35 parking spaces.
35, okay, that's what I was
Yes.
gonna ask, how many?
Well, I mean, I'll just say, I think this is a great use for the site.
Yeah, I do too.
There's a light at the intersection, so for control of traffic, there's plenty of stacking room, even off-site of that site. I think it's a good idea.
I think, what did we discuss at the last EDC, was like, we threw out ideas and like one of them was a bakery. Yeah, so please don't get Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts.
All right, and stacking is gotta be a consideration, because if anybody has driven around in the last COVID in crisis, nobody goes into the buildings anymore. You go by any of the restaurants, Dunkin' Donuts,
Yeah.
people are parked out in the street waiting
Yeah.
in line, because they will not get out of their vehicles and walk in. So,
The
This-
Starbucks in Amherst, they're
this-
backing out into
Yeah, Bedford
101A.
too, yeah.
this
Bedford.
site demonstrates stacking, as well as you have the inner road, which is not Mast Road. And I think that as long as we bring up and discuss stacking tonight, I think that's an important subject.
And that was actually something that Sarah raised very clearly in the TRC meeting about needing to do a traffic analysis,
Mhm.
which we certainly agree with and would pursue.
Any other board members have questions?
No, I agree with some of the comments. This is a
So, procedurally, Joanne, are we, because it's a conceptual, the applicant is looking for our general sense of the board, is that where we are tonight with this?
Correct.
Are
And
you
he's
looking
just
for any specific
he's just
questions that
looking
need to
for-
be answered? Not?
I don't think so. He's just looking for any comments that you might have as far as what you would be looking for when they come back with an actual plan.
Mhm.
Traffic study,
You already brought up the traffic study.
landscaping, I don't know, what else we would have.
Well, that's all part of the site plan.
Yeah.
And what kind of coffee is it?
Yeah, what kind of coffee? And if they'll have baked goods in too.
Can't say at this point. but-
Mark?
You were the one
I
who
see
moved away
I
from
see the
it.
project, I
Your
see where everything's
office
gonna
is
go.
over by-
One thing that some people fail to mention is, where do you plan on putting your snow removal? Did I miss that?
Well, this is a conceptual.
Yeah.
That'd be part of the site plan.
Yeah.
You have some area right here and then some area
But not a big.
back here.
Okay,
It's still to be determined and refined, but
That's
that's
fine.
kind of the high level where we were envisioning having it be.
All the plans carry the final caveat that snow exceeds the capacity to store, you remove it. And Dylan, am I right that I see on this plan a sidewalk that picks up an existing sidewalk from Rite Aid and essentially continues all the way through the property and then into the residential area?
That is the intention,
Could customers live down back?
hopefully.
There is also a requirement to put up some sort of screening, 6-foot-high fence. I can send you this so you have the language. On one side and in the rear if you're abutting residential. So it'd probably just be in the rear.
Which we were definitely,
Yeah.
because just the way the grades work, that you kind of almost look right now into the second floor
Right.
of the existing
'Cause it's low, yeah.
townhouses. So we were envisioning some sort of white stockade
Yeah.
or white vinyl
Yeah.
fence, something tasteful.
You guys do it all the time, but I'm sure we're gonna be looking for fire department as well. We're looking for truck turning movements within the parking area, plus loading and unloading. You're gonna be looking for hours of operation undoubtedly.
Sarah is also asking for a drainage study, as well as traffic, and she's looking for erosion control plan.
Anything else that this applicant
Those are all,
want to include
those are
on
all standards. so
Yeah.
it's nothing-
standard stuff? They do it every day.
Dick?
Well, we don't take an action on a
Conceptual.
conceptual, and we say the sense of the board is this appears to be an appropriate use of the site. We don't see any particular issues at this point. Fair statement?
What's this we stuff?
Well, that's my question.
The
I
board.
don't, but, you know, if they wanna.
Everybody can state their opinion.
Yeah, I know.
I think it's good.
I think it's a
Yeah,
good idea.
these are non-binding, so if something jumps out of
So
this.
most unanimous and affirmative this board has been on this site
I
in
think we-
years.
I think we
know.
all like
Look at the
coffee.
applicant, he's like, oh
14
my
years,
God,
we're back and
bonanza.
And we have spoken to both Franklin Savings Bank and NeighborWorks.
All you needed was coffee, pizza, bakery, anything. It would have been fine.
So Dylan, how is the park surviving with Franklin Savings Banks as the stewards? Have you been down to look?
The
The little park?
Fargo Memorial down here.
Yeah,
It's
the park.
actually, they're
Yeah,
doing really
that's
well
fine.
with it.
It's been maintained? They've
Yeah,
been
it's
there?
been
I go by it,
Yeah.
yeah.
They've actually taken pride, they've taken a lot of pride in the site, and at least anecdotally, they said it's a very successful site,
Good.
since they're the only bank in Pinardville, really,
Yep.
so. No, this is exciting. It's
It was-
been a long history.
Yeah.
and-
Don't wait too long before they change their mind.
I know, yeah.
Any other board members have opinions or statements to make at this time? Then we will say thank you for coming in, Dylan, and we'll
Thank
look
you.
forward to a plan from you at some point.
Yes, hopefully next, say, 3 to 4 months, we'd like to be
Great.
in front of the board. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
I have a couple of announcements, I guess. It's time to start looking at the proposed zoning amendments. And I had talked to Barbara yesterday and David, and they have both agreed to form a small subcommittee with staff to start looking over some things and then bringing it to the board. The first public hearing is scheduled for November 4th, so we have basically a month's time to come up with,
What day of the week is
it's a Thursday.
that? Thursday, okay.
Yeah.
We do it.
Yeah, it's just an off meeting from our
Yep.
regular night. So if, and I did speak with Tim as well, so if everyone's okay with that.
If somebody else wants to do the work, I'm all for it.
Sure.
Well, it's just Joanne ends up doing the work, we come in with staff comments, it just seems that it could use a little
I'm with you, Barbara.
help.
Yeah.
I'm with you completely.
Is that it?
And the other thing is,
Karen's running.
as I had sent you an email the other day, Katie Benner has filed an appeal of the planning board's decisions, several decisions, to the zoning board of adjustment. And when an appeal is filed of a planning board decision to the zoning board, it's strictly on the matter of whether or not the planning board interpreted the zoning ordinance correctly. So this is just the application itself, but there's about 160 pages attached to it. Mainly copies of minutes that have been highlighted, and then there are some other, the petition that was submitted a while back, and there's some other things. I haven't actually looked through the whole thing yet, I haven't had time. If you want, I can scan this and send it to you if you're
Do
interested.
we need to,
This goes to the zoning board, right?
right? Yeah, we
Correct.
don't need to read it
The
now.
zoning board will be hearing it on November 2nd.
Do they need us?
No,
Okay.
the planning board at this point is like sort of removed. This appeal is of the planning board's decision,
Gotcha.
but it's to the ZBA. So I'll probably attend just to listen, but there's nothing for us to do at this point.
Okay.
Well, do we need representation of some kind, from a board member or from staff? Because if we don't have a say into our interpretations, the ZBA can say whatever they want.
You're looking to me?
I'm looking to anybody that,
I'm trying to remember the last time we've had this
I don't know, I've never heard of it
We-
in many years that I've been doing it.
When our towns are in this situation, we typically advise that the planning board is not a party to the appeal. So we do not want to, we don't want to insert ourselves as a party. But there have been times in the distant past when we've had a representative, which was me, because I was chair, attend to at least express the planning board's view. Our preference generally is to stay out of it and let the applicant carry the water. Because again, we're not a separate entity that should be a party to the action.
Well, I would accept
so-
the
so-
board's, I would accept the board's advice, and I will attend to listen, maybe not say anything.
I think we can convey our views to Nancy to express, because we were consistent with her, and she can be the one to espouse our view.
And
Well-
who's gonna compile the statement of our view? Is that gonna be up to Joanne to do that?
Well, Joanne could review it with you or with the whole board, but I just don't want to be a separate party to, I'd rather we not be a separate party to the appeal.
I'm just asking for advice at this point.
I could give you an example. There's six items that she's appealing. One is that there is no listing for a laundromat in our zoning. 2 is the planning board without proper authorization. She talks about the grandfathered use, approve the alteration of an existing non-conforming ranch and turning it into a laundromat.
She said, she claimed that the house was conforming and the laundromat is non-conforming? That's what she's saying, right?
Yeah.
When it's a commercial zone.
Number 3, the proposed new driveway for the entrance on Hague Street that was now approved on 9/9/21 as a conditional use is in violation to the original findings of 7/22/21. See attached minutes.
But wasn't it a different driveway?
Different
Well,
location.
It
Different
was a
location, that's what I meant, yeah.
Number 4,
different
see
location.
attached handicapped accessible parking space marked 3 is on the property line in violation of the setbacks. Number 5, the planning board did not interpret parking spaces correctly, as it is ridiculous to count stacking spaces that people use while washing their cars in the bay, spaces that are to be used while people are using the vacuums, and spaces that are allotted for snow removal. Number 6, entrance to the proposed laundromat to be on the side of car wash, which currently has 6 feet 4 inches from entrance step to the curb of the right-hand turn only lane. No left-hand turn lane. This is so hard to read. Also known as no left-hand turn driveway that proposed laundromat wants to share. Add traffic also with the car wash will make it very dangerous, as even if the driveway is altered. And then she gets into the whole conditional uses that were approved and how she's not in agreement with them. Does anybody want a copy?
If
just
I'm
to
going
read it?
into the meeting and if I'm happy to listen, but if I'm expected to defend the board, I need ammunition. I can't just go in there and,
I'd rather you not.
that'd be fine.
No, I don't
I would
think.
suggest
That's
you
fine.
be quiet.
I can listen and see what they say and report to the
They're not
board.
gonna ask for board input,
No, I think
right?
the applicant will definitely, hit on those items that I just read, will respond, like say for instance, the first one, there's a section in the ordinance
Right,
that
right,
says, blah,
right,
blah, blah, that kind of thing.
And that the two weren't different because it was a different location.
She's, within all of this, there's a complaint about the right-hand turn lane entering onto Mass Road from the car wash. But everything about the car wash is moot because the car wash has its own approval from 2004 and that right-hand turn lane was part of the car wash.
And you
so-
said the appeal is our interpretation of the zoning?
So, in other words, if you interpreted the zoning ordinance incorrectly, so say in the case of the laundromat use, she's saying that the zoning ordinance does not say laundromats
It
are
seems-
allowed.
But it seems pretty narrow then, what the appeal can be about.
Correct. And the
Probably
remainder,
narrower than what she has.
the
Oh, sure.
remainder items that don't have anything to do with that would need to go to Superior Court.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Where are you working?
Portsmouth.
Is that it, Joanne?
Yes, that's all I have.
Phil?
Motion to adjourn.
Yep.
That's a second?
And Mark LeMay.
Yes.
Oh, Sarah had her baby.
Oh, she did?
She had a
Great.
little girl.
right?
Good.
And she was like,
Abigail, right?
yes,
Yes.
very large, like 9 pounds
Oh,
something.
wow.
Wow.
I know an email was sent out, but without reading the email, I happened to be watching David Muir on the news the other night when Mr. Scarborough
Yeah.
was interviewed because he found a kidney donor.
I saw it on TikTok.
I don't want,
did?
whatever,
Yes.
TikTok.
Yeah, there was a TikTok.
Why, do you dance on
about it.
TikTok? I
No,
hope not.
no, I do
So,
not do anything.
they had it on David Muir on Channel 7 News.
Yeah.
Okay, we gotta
Careful,
vote
the
on
red
the
light's still on.
withdrawal.
Huh?
Go into the
I'm not
adjourn.
saying anything that I'm
No,
not
I
going to say in
understand.
public.
Yeah.
So I'd like to wish Mr. Scarborough well, and I hope everything goes well for him.
Good job on the TikTok.
To hell with TikTok.
All right, we voting?
We are voting. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed, abstentions, it passes. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you GTV.
Yeah, I'm literally